Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Debaters Contest. We have touched down in Eldoret region. I am Austin Yumbok. Our motion today is colonial powers should be held accountable for atrocities that are committed in their former colonies. We have Kapropita girls going against St. Joseph's Kitale. Who will be the victor? It's you to decide. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
From Kapropita Girls High School, I am Sheila Mora. And I'm hereby to strongly propose the motion that colonial powers should be held accountable for the atrocities in their former colonies. Let's take a moment and understand this motion. There's a word there, atrocity. And according to the 9th edition, Oxford Dictionary, it states that atrocity is an extremely wicked or cruel act, typically one involving physical violence or injury, especially during a war. And that is why we, from the proposition side, we hereby support that these colonial powers should be held accountable for these cruel or violent acts. This leads me to my first point. Africans were taken as slaves in countries such as USA. They were forcefully removed from their native homes, and they were forced to walk for long distances without enough food. This did not just end here. They were whipped, overworked, and over low wages. And to my second point, it led to post-colonial poverty in Africa. We all are Kenyans, and we know that when the British came into our country, they made sure that they had sucked up all our raw materials, leaving us to start from scratch. This is proven by the Human Development Index, which was published by the United Nations in 2009. It reported that of the 24 countries experiencing low economic development, all but 3 are former colonies, meaning that 21 are actually former colonies. And unfortunately, all but 2 are in Africa. So this is why the colonial powers should be held accountable for these cruel acts they caused in Africa. And if you want to curb something like this not happening in the near future, they should be held accountable for the atrocities. I leave you to ponder on this. And with that, I rest my case.
Position, you have 3 minutes.
Colonial powers to be blamed for the atrocities that are being faced in their former colonies. A very funny motion, funny indeed. Mito Maximilian, St. Joseph's Boys. 1, the minerals that are found in our great nation, Kenya, were they were discovered after independence. Colleagues, in Kitui in 1988. So there is no point of telling us that they left us without minerals in Kenya. To my first point, which language am I using to communicate? I'm using English language. If not for the colonial powers, I could come here and I could only communicate to a few audience. The others could be wondering at what I could be saying. They brought to us a language that has united the Kenyans. And let me tell you one thing, if not for them coming, our country, we could still be in shambles. We could be still divided along tribal lines. But today I can stand proudly, talk before the 42 tribes in English, uniting them together, bringing out points that brings us together. Colleagues, I wonder why some of us forget things very fast. But why do we forget the incidents that took place on the 5th September 2014 at the Kenyatta National Hospitals, whereby my great brother, a good friend of mine, Brother Satiri, and his brother Senior, the two conjoined babies, if not for the colonial powers, let me tell you something, these two twins could be buried, they could have died. But because of the technology they brought, their brains were able to be separated, and the two boys, by the way, they are very healthy today. Colleagues, before the colonial powers came, let me tell you something, a woman, rather a girl child, could never stand in front of a male or a boy child. They brought to us gender equality. They brought to us human rights. Who is forgetting? Who amongst us never went to school? Don't you learn about the Buganda? Don't you learn about the Akabaka? Him who dies and his wife is buried with him, the servants are buried with him. Excuse me. Are the lives of the people attached to their leader? Our human rights were brought by these people. Congratulations to the colonial powers. Thank you.
It's time for rebuttals. The proposition, you have 3 minutes to make your cross-examination.
Rachel Kipkoech from Kapropita Girls, here to strongly propose the motion that states colonial powers should be held accountable for the atrocities in their former colonies. As the opposition has said, we have gained education, but as well, we could have gained it in a better way without going through pain and suffering the way they made us go through. For example, in Kenya, our Dedan Kimathi, our great hero, the one we love most, amongst others, was buried alive. This is so painful to us. Many Africans lost their lives. Mau Mau uprising, Kenyatta, they were jailed. You can name others, you know them. They were jailed and were tortured to a point of death. Our young men, strong, were forcefully convicted into wars they knew nothing about. The Germans and the Englishmen were the ones to be concerned with the wars. That was the year 1914 to 1918, during the First World War. On to my second point. Haiti should be compensated by the France, for they caused them pain and suffering. In the year 1804, there was Haiti massacre, which saw 3,000 to 5,000 men, children, and women. The targeted group was the black population. Let me ask you this question. If God gave us the freedom to choose our complexion, probably I would have chosen blue because it's my favorite color. You, my sister, you could have chosen yellow because it is your favorite color. We are all born like this because that's the way God wants us to be. On to my third point. England will face suffering. In the year 1793, there was Vikings invasion. The Vikings were the Norwegians and the Swedish. They assaulted the Christians simply because they never wanted Christianity. They were tortured. They were destroyed. And they were brutally beaten. This continued for 50 years. How painful is this? Shouldn't the present Norway, the present Sweden compensate the United Kingdom? A food for thought. Thank you.
Opposer number 2, you have 3 minutes to offer your cross-examination.
Praise the Lord, guys. Praise the Lord again. Now, we look at this topic, extremely emotional, arising topic. Something we face each and every day. Something we see each and every day. Can we shun our eyes away from the deteriorated economy that the colonies, the former colonies, are passing through? Let me give you an example of Kenya. At the time of independence from the colonial powers, 1 Kenyan shilling was equal to 0.009643 American dollars. And now we get $1 equalizing to 101 Kenyan shillings. If I round off the dollar, I'll give $0.01 equalizing to 1 shilling. I divide the number with the 101 Kenyan shillings, I'll get that the number has multiplied more than 101 times. We are talking about today. We are talking about what is going on in our countries that were former colonies of the Britain, former colonies of the French, former colonies of the German. Look at the religion. Look at the ignorant cultural practices, the cushy and naff cultural practices that we used to go through. Imagine in Egypt, you had to be buried with all your properties. Your wife is alive, your servants are alive, you have to be buried with them. Some communities were even encouraging life sacrifice. It took Christianity and it took Britain to fight against things like slave trade. And that's why I stand today and say praise the Lord. Because if we look at the difference we have in infrastructure, in education, in literacy, the difference we have today, it's because of the influence of the colonies. Yes, we passed through very difficult times, but we are talking about today. Should they be blamed for what we are going on, what we are going through now? Should they be blamed? If we joke with our economy, should they be blamed? Because they gave it to us. They are in their countries at this moment. So who is to blame? We are to blame. If we look at the difference in the economy of South Africa and the economy of Kenya, which one is more developed and who got independence first? I rest my case.
Thank you very much for your questions. The proposition have been asked if the colonialists left us with enough resources to ensure that we're independent in terms of self-internal growth. The opposition have been asked if the colonialists, when they did come to take our land and minerals, did it benefit them or us?
Thank you, Karen, for the question you asked. Rehema Leslie from Kapropita Girls High School, here to propose the motion that states colonial powers should be held accountable for the atrocities in their former colonies, and also to answer the questions posed to us. I'll start by answering the questions, ladies and gentlemen. We have been asked, will we have had independence will the Mau Mau had fought for their independence if they were not colonized at first? And the answer is simple. If they had never colonized us, we wouldn't have had the need to fight for independence. So with that, Karen, I hope I've answered you. And ladies and gentlemen, today I want to take you slowly why these colonial powers should be held as responsible. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, they destroyed our structures. Who said that these colonies didn't have their structures before the colonial powers came? We had our structures. We had our leaders. Yes, we had cases, but we also had mechanism to solve them. But with the coming of the colonial powers, my friends, this is what happened. The colonial powers decided to open boundaries. For example, British in Kenya, they decided that Kenya is too divided, so they decided to unite us. But did they unite us? No. Why am I saying this? What led to the post-election violence in 2007? Ladies and gentlemen, you are all witnesses that it was due to tribalism, right? Yes. They opened the boundaries. Ladies and gentlemen, they opened the boundaries. But with that, they brought us many challenges. Because it is due to tribalism that we had the atrocities that we saw in 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, secondly, monkey see, monkey do. They say I look like my mom. They say I walk like my mom. You know what? The colonial powers were like parents to these colonies. What we saw the British do is what we are doing right now. They spoke in English, and that's what we are doing. And yes, they took power into their own hands. They said that, so since I'm superior, I'm supposed to rule over the rest. And the colonies watched and learned. And that's why after independence, ladies and gentlemen, we have men like Idi Amin who decide that since they're superior, they take power into their hands and they suppress other people. Where did we find this? Where did we learn this? From the colonial powers, my dear friends. Are you still saying that they should not be held accountable? Then you're joking. They should be held accountable because they are to blame. This time we should be talking about how much they should pay us. So ladies and gentlemen, it is clear. Let them pay. They started it, let them pay. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to answer the questions.
First and foremost, in reference to the question, I'm afraid my sister that neither my team did make such reference. The reference about mining on the colonialist was made by my sisters, the proposers. I'm Keithian, St. Joseph's Boys. Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, the chairperson of the anti-graft boss 3 years ago, and Kenya's chairperson of the Kenya School of Law, says that Africa are co-authors of their own misfortunes. It is not a notion, it is the truth. For instance, we have had many ruthless African leaders. Look at it like nations like Uganda. They had a leader, Idi Amin. Look at the Central African Republic. They had Emperor Jean Bedel Bokassa. Look at a nation like Zimbabwe. They have Mugabe. Look at a nation like Libya, Muammar Gaddafi. You do look at a nation like Togo, where they had a dictator known as Samuel Doe. You also had the change in the political structure in the African countries brought about by the colonialists. For instance, I believe every one of us knows King Mswati. King Mswati in Swaziland, they still embrace the African aspect. In Swaziland, the king marries a wife every year through a deal dance. It's something that demeans the culture of the women. It demeans the women's dignity. Thus, you are living in a 21st century. We actually don't expect that. Look at it like nations like Kenya. When we went to fight the Al-Shabaab, the colonialists came up. French gave military support to Kenya when they were going to fight the Al-Shabaab. They provided us with machinery to fight terrorism. Look at corruption in our African countries. I will strongly quote it, that when elections were held this year in the nation, in the Gambia, President Yahya Jammeh has ruled Gambia for 30 years. Great thanks to President Yahya Jammeh's duty of corruption in the country, Gambia does not have a single university. The Gambia is poor. President Yahya Jammeh siphoned all the country's resources into his own personal wealth. Same to Mobutu Sese Seko when he was the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo in the 70s. Mobutu Sese Seko rose to become the third richest president on the world, the child richest president on the planet. Well, at that time, as a reasonable African, as a patriotic African, I can say that all Africans were poor. Come to the Kenyan aspect. It is not a notion, it is not a belief, there are not rumors. We have heard of the Eurobond, the NYS scandal. Look at Zimbabwe. Still Zimbabwean corruption. The Eurobond, the NYS. Great thanks to the African leaders. But the colonialists have come up. Even when nations are ravaging in war, when Rwanda had a problem, the colonialists came up. The nations, the leaders of those atrocities were taken to the ICC. Great thanks to our former colonial masters. Thank you.
Now it's time for final submission. Proposition, you have 1 minute.
When you see a drunkard in a ditch, ladies and gentlemen, don't blame that last sip. Blame when it all started. When we see the atrocities in our countries and in the former colonies, it's not us, no. It is the colonial powers. Let's blame them and let them be accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, we support this with our points that we have put across. They destroyed our structures. They are to blame. Let them pay. They should be accountable. If you do something, you should be accountable for it. They colonized us. So the proper thing is they should be accountable. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 1 minute to make your final submissions.
I was very happy one day when I came back from school. I reached our house. I gave my young brother food, ate the food on the plate, and kicked the plate. So bad. Africans. There's no Briton who speaks in any of the 42 local languages, standing and blaming them for the 2007-2008 post-election violence is actually absurd. There's no colonial person, there's no colonialist who can come and then begin speaking in either Kijaluo or in Kiluya or any other local languages. Hence, I don't see any point whereby they say now Kenyans, go and fight. We can't actually tie that on them. And to bring this point to our notice, the United States of America was colonized by the Britain in 1776. The Chinese were forced to trade by the same Britons. And today, look at where they are economically. But look at the people who are so stubborn. Hearts made of stone, iron, and diamond. Countries like Liberia and Ethiopia. Where are they right now? I rest my case.
The proposers, Sheila, you had good definitions about the topic, but you did not internalize them. It was like you are reading from a book to us. So in future, please internalize. Let them be part of you. And then the opposers, there was Brian. At least you took a religious stance, and you made us at least connect with you, with the praise the Lord. And I connected with that, and most of us, you involved the audience. So I've enjoyed the debate from both sides. Thank you.
Mora, you're very confident, but I could tell that maybe there was a bit of research that you needed to have done, especially making reference to slavery, to colonialism. They were a bit different off, but very good confidence. Rehema, very good job. You're quite passionate. We could see your style. We could see your mastery of language was also very good. If I could move to the proposers, I must say, Max Miller, you are quite comical. That was good. I've enjoyed your session. Brian, equally, your sense of style is also very strong. And the same goes to one Keith.
Kapropita girls, the judges awarded you 67%. Please give them a round of applause. St. Joseph's Boys, Kitale, the judges saw it fit to award you 70%. You're our winners for the debate. Well done to the two teams on stage. We'd like to thank our studio audience and our viewers back home. Keep watching, follow the conversation on social media, #GDC for SDGs. I've been your host, Austin Yombok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.